Let me extend a very warm welcome to I understand, 153rd webinar of the series that we have been running for last almost 5 years. And I think before we proceed, I should tell you a little more because if I would very much like more people to know about what we're doing and why we're doing this. This series we started during the pandemic. And you won't believe me, but when I started, the idea was that we will do 3 webinars. The technology was new, idea was new. We were not sure in terms of how will it go. But as we went along, I think it picked up momentum and there was a very good response. And therefore we continued and today we reached 153rd webinar. And as a matter of fact, each webinar is more or less 2 hours, and therefore we have something like 300 hours of recording of urban experts, from all over the world. Something like 600 urban experts who have spoken on this platform, and we're very happy that we have this with this knowledge material. Preeti ji is helping us, to kind of find a way to convert this into some kind of knowledge products. We have had some success in doing one book. The second book, which is based on 7 webinars, called City Economies in the Global South. It's Growth, Inclusion, and Sustainability is being published by Routledge sometime in October. And we are hoping to prepare for another 2 books pretty soon. So it's been very interesting, great amount of learning. This particular series that we are running on urban Odisha, and today is the 4th part. I'm just one person responsible for it, and that's Preeti ji. If she was not there to help, she was not there to get this organized, there's no way we would have done it. With no idea. And we were not only kind of taking up Odisha state with which we are not very familiar, we were taking up cities. And therefore it really meant knowing people who know the cities very well as well. And because she knows the place, she was able to help find them. And today we have this remarkable panel of 4 panelists who would tell us. I'm personally very interested in hearing about Koraput, and I like the title of this webinar. It's called Urban Planning Rooted in Culture, Ecology, and Inclusion. Urban planning, I think, we talked about rooted in land use planning, urban planning. We talk about using in economic planning. We talk about infrastructure planning. But rooted in culture, ecology, and inclusion is something interests us very much. We're very grateful to all of you, and I would take time to thank all of you at the end of the session for being here. And with this small little introduction, which is the smallest introduction in last 153 webinars, I hand over Preeti ji to kind of conduct this webinar. Thank you, Preeti ji, and I look forward to hearing all of you. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kirti ji, for your kind and warm words every time. Just before you stepped in, with some of the panelists, we were just trying to understand that why Koraput, because the moment you start talking about Koraput, the general sense of perception is about tribals, it's about culture, but it's not about urban. So why did we ever decide to take up a city in terms of our understanding of urban? So the intention was like Odisha's aspirational around Odisha's urban vision and how that thinking in the last 1 year has paved path for several cities to take up much infra-led development, kind of people-centric orientations happening. And we know for sure the way some of these cities are developing, they are becoming big, small, there is every possibility that one day Koraput will also start experiencing some of the influences of this. And for the records, Koraput is less than 16% urbanized. So, largely on records, it's supposedly to be a rural habitation, but it's also kind of seen a lot of, let's say, cultural diversities. It's also seen ecologically very rooted and culturally many healthy. So, what we are trying to understand in this that what is the current scenario of Koraput altogether, and how are we trying to make a difference in terms of our own thinking and plans and aspirations for the place. So I'll start up with Mr. Bidyut. He's been a pioneer. He lives in Koraput. He's spent close to 3 decades or more in Koraput, and he's been working very closely with the Adivasi communities and truly understands how livelihoods and some of their community participation has been. So, Bidyutji, I would like to hear from you first that take us through a journey of understanding Koraput better and what has been several challenges in the course of your understanding of the place.
Thank you, Preeti. Uh, my when I landed up in Koraput, I mean, 32 years back. So it was so beautiful. What you told, it's about the people, forest, hills, water bodies, waterfalls, so many things. Yeah, it's a. I mean, when we are talking about the urbanization, it is not a Koraput is not a empty space waiting for a planner to plan something. It's a living landscape. Yeah. There are 35 tribal groups. In Odisha, there are 62 tribal groups, and out of it, 35 tribal groups are in Koraput district itself. They have a very rich cultural heritage. And their dance, that their dress, their ornaments, their sacred groups, their language. I mean, so many mother tongues. And the ecology. There are two, heritage site declared recently. Gupteshwar and Devmali is, I'm going to be soon. So when we are talking about the urbanization, so my concern is whether these urbanization planners, whether they will erase all these things or they will recognize all these things. It's a, I mean, what we, I mean, it's a living museum, you can say. Yeah. So, but traditional planners, they hardly bothers about this culture and everything. It is not a real estate to plan. That is my point. Because, I mean, if any kind of a future urbanization we are thinking, now if you will go even in Bhubaneswar, so their thinking is like if you will put some Sora arts on the wall, then it is travel. So that is the understanding at present this people have, technocrats you can say, but Koraput is beyond to it. Um, so I'm just giving an example. Suppose each tribal group had their own natural dyeing and weaving practices. So completely managed by the tribal women. And hardly you will find anything now. It vanished completely. So only one is in Kotpad area. Everybody is talking about Koraput, but there were 35 types of people have their own traditional drawing practices, weaving practices, everything. So whether this will be a part of this whole urbanization process, and how people, whether people will be just a beneficiary or they will be part of the planning process. Yeah. We don't have a museum. We have a very small museum in Koraput that also private initiative museum. And museum is not a kind of a building. That is why I'm talking about it's a living community museum. Agriculture, millet. There are 16 varieties of millet. There are, it was said that this paddy was first discovered in this Jaipur tract. So there are 1,000 land races on paddy. So whether all these rich cultural practices will be part of this urbanization or not, so most of the time it is missing. At present also, if you look into, I mean, there are two, three urban places. One is Jaipur, one is Koraput, these two big, then this Hull, then this Damanjodi. If you'll go to these colonies, either Sunabeda or the Damanjodi colonies, hardly you will find any kind of it's a typical urban structure. Yeah. And each tribal group had their own housing pattern. And now we are talking about, no, it's a luxury of staying in a earthen house. Uh, but they have their own. You will not find in this existing colonies built in Hal or at Damanjodi or in Koraput, inside the Koraput, any traces of tribal culture or practices or anything. Tribal heart, you know. But people are coming to the tribal heart. Vegetables, agriculture, there's so many things. And forest, NTFP, there are 100 kinds of NTFP. There are herbal medicines are available. There are traditional herbal practitioners are available. It can be a Kerala like a situation. You know, people are going to Kerala for this kind of a thing now. They can come to Koraput also. So if that planning will be, I mean, if planning will be inclusive of all these indigenous knowledge, their wisdom, so it will be a great urbanization plan. Unless there will be buildings, you know, concrete structures will be there. And now people are going in large number, this tourist, and they're just polluting everything. I'm praying God, please don't come to Koraput. If you are, I mean, if you are coming, please don't pollute our place. So people are also, I mean, there is no infrastructure, there is no awareness. So these people are coming and polluting. You just can't imagine. I forgot to, I'm not going to the regular places where these thousands of people are going there, just dumping their plastic and everything, liquor bottle, everything. You just can't imagine. Every place is, now this Kaudiyas are going, no? This is Ravan month. We have a very good place called Gupteshwar. Um, very good river. It's a cave. Temple is there. So there was no practice of these Kauriyas going there. So now thousands of tons of plastic lotas, you know, they are taking this uh, what they call this, you know, with the plastic, and people are there to serve them also. Plastic thermocol. You just can imagine. I filed a case in NJT against this and got a degree. I mean, also this forest department, district administration, they told that no, we will not use it. It's a 6 years back. But what to do? So I mean, any kind of urbanization or urban planning, they should respect the nature, Mother Earth. You know, now most of the sacred groups. So what happened? Some of these so-called planners, they decided, Preeti, you know, they will protect the sacred groups of the tribal people. They build a boundary of the sacred group. It's a small boundary. You know, they cement boundary. They destroyed everything. So these tribal people had I mean, practice that. So along during their festival, so all the villagers will be around that sacred group. They will sit, they will watch what their priest is doing, what is that, because that is their god. But now they put I mean, it is a traditional thing. Most of these people, temple means there will be a boundary and everything. So they put a small boundary, cement boundary. So some places people are just breaking it. So if the planners don't have that understanding of tribal people, their culture, so this kind of disaster will happen.
Yes.
Uh, so how these people can be a part of the planning process. They should not erase all these things. We don't want Delhi in Koraput or Ahmedabad in Koraput. We need Koraput as a Koraput.
Very true,
Sorry,
very
sorry,
true. No, it's
sorry.
very well said. It's all from the heart, and I really understand what you're talking about. It's a disaster that is going on at this point of time, and no one talks about it. No one thinks about it. And it is not only concrete jungle. What you're saying is very true. We have such huge, great traditions, and especially when you're talking about travel culture, which is tremendous. We don't want to see its remnants even now. That's what is happening, and it's. I wanted to ask you this question: that if you got to train planners who will be sensitive to this, understand this, and no one else will do it. Koraput itself or the Odisha itself will have to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, huh? Thank you.
Thank you, Vidyutji. And with this, actually, I'll try to bring in Priyadarshini into the conversation. Priyadarshini has been part of several discourses nationally, internationally, and also she's been leading a lot of work with children. And she's worked also extensively in urban slums. So I would like to hear some of your thinking around it. Like Bidurji was talking about changing of cultures, transitions, and we've seen that with the shift in language, with the shift migration pattern changing, Priyadarshini, a lot of I think a lot of detrimental effect have come to how the emergence of urbanization has been for places like Koraput. So would like to hear your thoughts around it. You're mute if you're trying to talk.
Thank you, Preeti. And thanks for choosing Koraput for the discussion. Like, I have a lot of things experienced in Koraput. So, to start with Bidyut's statement, so urbanization should not be viewed only as the growth of town. Rather, it is a process. So, a lot of changes are happening with urbanization. So, it's a change of livelihood, it's a change of food pattern, it's a change of community feeling, culture, and everything. So where the child is, the ecology of childhood is totally changing with urbanization. So earlier the child was used to have whole settlement as a space to play and as their learning environment. And from there, the urbanization, they are limitizing themselves. So there is a lot of limitation of play space. So no place to play. So they have to they have to take themselves in a smaller space in their home. So, and Koraput offers a very important lens for understanding urban childhood in a culturally diverse situation. So, as Vidutji was telling, so it's a mix of many cultural groups. So, it's a center place to which connects with Nabarangpur, with Raigada, with Gajapati. So, it was used to be a place where all the cultures are mixing. And along with that, urbanization is another thing happening. So, where the child is in this whole process, so very important. So, the child is suffering a lot in the urbanization process, which is never seen and never addressed by the urban planners, I'll say. So, only with telling child-friendly cities, smart cities, where child have a space to play, so child is equally treated in the whole process. I don't think so. So, child is nowhere, and by creating a park it is not going to solve the issue. So I'll tell that I was there in Koraput 25 years before. So not as a visitor, you can say from program perspective, but just to observe the child and their learning, how it is happening. So if you go to rural Koraput and you will see the children in urban Koraput, you will find a lot of difference. Confused children, so without a cultural identity, with a lot of language issue, so which is like disturbing their learning process. So what happens to care care that is provided to health system, to WCD system, through AWC, that becomes a challenge. So care follows the settlement, not the child. So there is the issue. So and I don't think urban planners are thinking so. And this is the least concern aspect. That's what I was telling Preeti. So take the inputs from this webinar and do something. So otherwise it will be of no use. So a lot of people will tell a lot of things, but urban planners will do their things on their own and without seeing the whole thing from ECD lens. So the changing settlement and neighborhood creates a lot of trauma for the child. Trauma in the sense less open space to play the child is having, and no community feeling. The language is a issue when they're coming to the urban. In urban, they speak a link language, particularly in Koraput. So it's a Desia language, which is a link language. So which is not any tribal language. So the child have to learn that. So that is one thing. So language is a bigger issue, and reduced opportunities are there to play, to learn, to mix, and no space for traditional thinking, for traditional gathering and traditional observations, less open space to play, and a lot of exposure to construction pollution, which was not there earlier. So that becomes a challenge. Maybe this is a scope for their parents or for the elder person of the family. They are getting a better livelihood opportunity, but for the child, it is like just to trying how to transit. And in the whole process of transiting, the learning process gets affected, and the development process of the child also gets affected. So migration also changes the caregiver ecosystem, right? So in the caregiver ecosystem, the child have to either be with the no parents in the home, or be at the Anganwadi center if it is available. Other than that, there is no caregiving ecosystem for the children. Then the child have to the young child below 3 years, they don't have a scope to be with any elderly parents. So that is one other thing. With urbanization, care economy should be equally addressed. So there should be opportunities in urban during urbanization. They should thought about care economy. So where the young child will go if the both the parents are working and going for work for morning 8 to late evening. So the child is left behind without any care services or any stimulation or anyone with them for proper care. So that is one thing I'll say. So, and another thing is uh, what happens to the caregiver giving points? For example, the Anganwadi center, the sub center. So does that follows the child? So during this migration process from in urbanization, the child lost all these care services. So a lot of dropouts in immunization, a lot of dropouts in the Anganwadi care services, and also in health services. So that is one thing which the child gets affected by urbanization. And the other thing is plays, which is uh, the most required stimulation for the young child, that gets affected. So there is very less place. So the child have to keep inside their house with the screen nowadays, with the screen. So very small, only indoor activities the child can do, and without parents and without elderly care support. So that is for young child, play is not a luxury. So that is essential thing which the children must have opportunities to play. So that gets affected. And coming to the culture and language part, this is the most difficult part, because mother tongue, as we know, so in the early learning process, mother tongue have a great thing to do, and this is the most important facilitator in the process of learning. But here the child have to come from mother tongue to other tongue. That may be a link language like Desia, but again the child have to learn. So adult can immediately follow the Desia language from other language, but it is very difficult when the service providers are talking in some other language and the child is learning, and the child is not able to follow that language. So culture and language, that is also another barrier. It happens through urbanization. So is the child in the center is getting affected with many things, as I told, so which is not addressed by the urban planners. So broadly they tell we are taking ECD lens, but practically I have seen, so no planning is done with ECD lens. So that's it for now. Thank you.
I would thank you, Priyadarshini, for bringing these lenses into discussion, and also kind of shift to Sanket ji to say how in Koraput some of the evolving tourism aspect has evolved over the years. Because while in a lot of European places we see that high incidence of tourism is also kind of creating more detrimental effect. So, for something like Koraput, how is it coming together?
Namaste. Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, yes.
So, thanks for this platform where I am getting to speak. But what I think is Koraput needs rigorous action regarding the tourism thing, because, like Bidyut has said, that there is a lot of littering, and plastic waste is now a major problem. uh, for me, like, my father bought a property that was, he bought it like 30 years back, and we have been cultivating coffee, black pepper, along with other spices. And people are right now, they think Koraput as a decoration where they want to go, they want to take photos, and they want to, spend time, drink, and enjoy. But I think Koraput is much more in a higher position than that. They need, people need to understand that not everything has to be urbanized. And maybe that's the problem with, like, I won't say it's a problem, I don't like blaming people, but there has to be strict action regarding the plastic. Like Shillong and all those northeast places, the plastic waste has to be, they have to be accountable regarding how much plastic you're getting into Koraput, and very responsibly it has to go back to the places where we can decompose them. So all these places, like Vidusa said, I have been like very, very closely moving around Koraput, and we are filming, and we're taking feedback from people where the grasslands are damaged by people, where they get their SUVs into the grassland and they are like drifting and doing things that is not supposed to happen, and that is damaging the grazeland of the kettles that I brought up in the lands of Koraput. So it's one of the biggest problem is plastic that has to be addressed as soon as possible. In like, I have seen that shift of footfall to Koraput since last 3 to 4 years, and right now it's a very big problem regarding the plastic. And the second thing I would like to say is the culture, the tradition is fading out because of urbanization. People are not equipped with knowledge, but again they are equipped with modernity, the urbanization, where they get to, they are flexing out, they are showing up things that are modern, but they are not very much grateful for the tradition and culture. Everything is fading out. Like, I visited a Bonda tribe very recently, and there are very less people who are into wearing that traditional thing. But when it comes to, when a foreigner or a guy from outside from Koraput, they come and they pull out a camera and take starting photos. They go to their houses and they get dressed up with that tradition, and they ask for maybe 500 for each photos. So these are something happening, these are some things that I would like to address regarding Koraput. And other than that, the pollution, the AQI is reducing, the pollution is like, it's improving, like increasing. I think the modernization, there has to be certain things that has to be left, left out from that society. But that's not happening. People are, I would like to say, I was because we are into hospitality, we have a resort, like, it's a, coffee retreat where we like host people. And along with that, I think it is important on every individual that they ask people to be humble to the people of Koraput and treat them like with the kindness, because people, they, Koraput, the people from Koraput are not actually habituated to the urbanized setup, and they see it as a alien thing that is coming down to Koraput. So it's, there are a lot of things, like it's probably sitting on this video call. I would really like to say that if this meeting happened in some village in Koraput, maybe we'd get to know a lot of things regarding what is actually happening. Landslides, the roads are getting better, but again, the urbanization has ruined up a lot of things in Koraput. And I must say Koraput has potential regarding coffee and a lot of like millets. Like we know that millets, Koraput is a hub of millets. There are, I think, as per my knowledge, there are 16 type of millets that are grown nearby my place. Along with that, there is a huge potential of agriculture, and the tradition is so rich that is fading out. There is organic weaving here. There are people who are good at terracotta. They know how to work sustainably, and they know that how to use that nature that is not breaking up things.
Thank you.
Thank you from my side. Maybe I don't know I'm clear enough
No,
or not,
thank you,
but
Sanket ji, for bringing in some of these nuances because, like we heard Bidyut ji bringing in the aspect of how culture has to be more rooted in the planning process. And Priyadarshini was trying to bring the shift in the narrative with regard to how children and their culture are impacted with some of these nuances of migration patterns or with the aspects of language shifting. And a lot of our viewers actually join from different parts of the country and also outside the country. So for them, the reason why some of the panelists have been very focused in terms of bringing in cultural lens, ecological lens, and also some of the environmental aspect has been because you have to be in Koraput to understand Koraput, and not just Koraput. There are several places in within the country like that where our indigenous populations have their own set of wisdom and they've grown up generationally in that place. There is a certain sense of lived intelligence to that place. But with the shift in terms of thinking that we need to develop into something better, and there is no definition to that betterment, but there is a curiosity in terms of that better. We see that a lot of these nuances gets hidden in the process. So till now, we are trying to kind of harp on some of these nuances. And thanks to Sanket for bringing up the aspect of food, because our next panelist, Anshuman, he's been working intensively on farmer livelihoods in Koraput. And what we would like to hear from you is about how some of the food economies have evolved or maybe been challenged by urbanization in the place. Anshuman?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Anshuman, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting me on the panel. I'm a little under the weather, so I might just be coughing a bit. Please forgive me for that. Just a small clarification. I mean, this is a very esteemed panel with like lots of experience in working in Koraput. My personal sort of experience, I am in Koraput coffee ecosystem for the last 5 years. There's a very different perspective that I have, and urbanization is something that I would like. I've sort of again like Sanket said, I have very strong feelings about whether we need urbanization for a place like Koraput. To be very honest, just taking a couple of steps back because the theme is on urbanization. One of the things that I've been trying to figure out is, do we have a definition of what we are looking at in terms of urbanization? Because if there is such a definition, are we looking at it in terms of economic lens? Are we just saying that more and more people shifting from living in the traditional style of housing into maybe like having pakka houses, or are we looking at urbanization in terms of density, in terms of the level of income that people have? I mean, there are different parameters in which we understand urbanization. The way I'm looking at urbanization happening in, let's say, Bhubaneswar, let's say urbanization playing out in Bombay, they're all happening, but in very, I mean, the context is different and the approach is different. Now, for me, in terms of how I looked at Koraput ecosystem. One of the things why we talk about coffee and the potential of agri is largely because, like, I look at myself as a city dweller. The reason why I go to Koraput is because there is a nostalgia attached to to a place which has not become a concrete jungle. Uh, Now, the idea is, how do we ensure that a place like Koraput does not necessarily turn into another city in Odisha? We don't necessarily need that to happen. Now, if we look at it purely in terms of an economic lens, and there I bring in agri because we are an agro-based economy, and Koraput is and continues to be an agro-based economy. There are obviously these broader approaches towards shifting it from an agro-based economy to maybe a tourism-based economy or a services-based economy. But agri will continue to be the backbone of the economic activity. Now, that is also relevant because the way these the villages are organized, there is a lot of agri-based approach towards how they're structured, how families function, how that entire market system functions, for instance, how the heart system functions. Now, these are certain attributes which need to continue into whichever version of urbanization Koraput is essentially looking at. But purely the idea from an urbanization perspective should be to make sure that the same farmer is able to generate more money out of whatever land that he's cultivating. So let's say we try to help them move higher in the value chain. Let's say a farmer's producing paddy. Can we help them earn more by sort of helping them directly sell rice? Just giving you an example. For every crop that they produce, if we are able to help them out in terms of improving them and their position in the value chain, that's how you're putting more money into the hands of the people. So you have these concepts in agri system. You're talking about these farmer producer organizations, FPOs, FPCs, whatnot. Now those are the structures that need to be looked at a little more carefully. Perhaps look at it in such a way that we don't really define urbanization for them. If we are just able to put more money into hands of certain villages, they'll figure out how they want to sort of move their village infrastructure upwards, right? Like, we don't really need to enforce this idea that, okay, this is how a town is supposed to develop into a city or a city is supposed to develop into a metro. I've seen rural clusters in Koraput. They have a particular character. There is a particular way, like, with the different villages located around the district, there is a character that you can see throughout Koraput. And then I see urban centers or urbanizing centers like the town itself, but Simliguda, for instance. Simliguda has just come up, like, it's become, I would say, urban in a very short span of time. But then I don't, like, when I go to Simliguda, I don't feel like it's the Koraput version of Koraput that I want to go. So I run to maybe Sanket's farm because that's what I want to see in Koraput. I don't want to see Simliguda city with, all that traffic, with all these trucks loaded with all these let's say, like these shops just clustering the main road and all of that. Smaller little pathways taking me to nowhere, basically. Now that's a version of urbanization that I'm not really, like, I don't really see how that's going to really help anyone. So uh, just if I just, like, put all of that together, what I'm trying to essentially say is urbanization means differently at different places. The people define what urbanization should be for a particular region. It has to be contextual in terms of their culture, the traditions that they want to carry, the traditions that they don't want to carry. But all of that has to come into play. Uh, the other aspect also, what I've noticed is that, like, see, if I go to Koraput, even if I stay there for 30 years, I will not technically be. So if you're creating a urbanization story, there's going to be a immigration angle coming into play. And because these are hotbeds for Adivasis, and they're the true, they're the true, let's say, the people that the place belongs to, then there's always going to be this other angle of them versus us, right? Like, that's going to be there. Like, we can't enforce the idea of urbanization on them. So that is another aspect which needs to be taken into consideration. So how inclusive are we? Are we listening to them in terms of trying to understand what urbanization is and what they think urbanization should be, or are we just trying to take this particular idea of how a urban city in India is, and then we are just translating attributes into this particular region? So that's essentially it. Like, and agri is going to be the backbone, and what I'm saying is agri has to be connected with farmer income, and there is a way in which farmer income can go up without unnecessarily, like, we don't need to set up industries there. All that we need to do is put up small manufacturing units, give them the control, let them produce higher valued, uh, I mean, at all these urban centers, we're essentially consuming processed food, right? Which we pay a lot of money for. Let the farmers move up the value chain, sell that directly to me. They'll earn more money. I'll consume whatever I'm consuming, cutting out the intermediaries. Let that money flow happen, and then let them decide how that urbanization story plays out. That's my perspective on
Yeah.
this.
No, thank you, Anshuman. I think you brought in several key points into the conversation. One of them was about them versus us, and the definition of how does the economic play in a particular city. The rootedness of Koraput's agriculture, small scale manufacturing units can still make it and give the place an elevated form. It doesn't necessarily need to have an industry or a vertical housing, or let's say in terms of bigger infrastructure into place. But I'll try to pick up on your point of inclusiveness, and I'll try to bring in a little more understanding into that. So I'll take this conversation for Priyadarshini and say that while we are discussing so much about urban childhood, how do you think a culturally responsive childhood can be built in such spaces? Because while we are talking about play, we are talking about indigenous cohorts. Everything that they do is different than the normal or the traditional model. So, Priyadarshini, my question to you is about building in more culturally responsive childhood and development in places like Koraput and beyond. Because some of these learning can also help us sharpen our understanding about how places can develop.
Yeah. Yes, so that is a big challenge in a place like Koraput, because as I told, they have a lot of indigenous practices in terms of play, and they have in their own cultural context of learning. So a lot of learning happens in the community. So all these things need to be taken care through urbanization. So in urbanization, we should not look only to the infrastructure development, the road, the water, sanitation, and all thing. So child care and child should also be addressed as an important entity in the whole process. So here the services should follow the child. That means the services offered in Anganwadi centers, in childcare spaces like in creches. So there should be a mother tongue approach in all the things. So that is one important thing. The conversation and the communication to the young child must be in mother tongue. So that is a priority which I'll say to save the culture. So, and in the process of activities of play and stories, lorries, whatever they have culturally, that need to be documented, and that should be communicated to the child in the young age to strengthen the learning. So as we all know, the from known to unknown is the process of child learning. So in the known thing, we have to take their cultural identity, their cultural heritage, the stories, stories, lullabies, the toys they are used to play in the community. And the most risk part is there is no documentation of all these things. So if sometime and during the process we just want to translate the whole thing, so there is no scope for the current worker, for the current training to refer. So as you know, they don't have a script. So the most important thing is documenting the cultural practices in terms of all these things what I told. So that is very helpful for the child learning. So that is one thing. And from my experience, I'm telling that in urbanization, the child is the most suffer entity, you will say. There is neither the ULBs are owning the child, nor the department is owning the child. So there is a confusion between the ULBs and the department person. So so particularly the ULBs, they never accept them as their child. So and we all are speaking, today children are tomorrow's citizen, and the young child's mind, and in thousand years and in 6 years of time, 90% of brain development happens. So the child need to be stimulated, the child need to be exposed to many things for stimulation, which is lacking in urban context. So whatever urban context you can take. So my suggestion will be just to store all those things in a documentation form, just to start documenting the cultural things will be a better way, and involve the community experiences with the early children is very important. Like the community people need to be invited in the whole process, and there should be a community participation when we are designing a curriculum for the young children. So there can be start with.
Seriously, I have just a quick question to this. While you talk so beautifully about Koraput and how some of this wisdom can be taken, I also want to hear a little bit about your experience working in the Northeast, because those are also some of these evolving cities, and that is also where a lot of our indigenous groups exist. Do you see similarity in terms of how children are evolving in these spaces, or how governments are proactively looking at townships or our urban center, factoring in this young children or the communities at large?
Yes, so definitely I love to place here my Northeast experience. So, but typically I'm telling about Meghalaya, which is again a tribal dominated state. But their government have started all these things. So the traditional nutritional practices, because they have a study. So how the culture is evolving. So now they want to preserve their culture in terms of play, in terms of learning, in terms of food practices, and all those things. And now there was a very typical study where I come to know that the height of the children are gradually decreasing in Meghalaya. So, and the interesting thing is that this is because of the faulty complementary feeding practices, introduction of more and more packaged food, and not following the cultural food and nutrition component is gradually hampering. That's why, because of loss of protein and all those things, the height of the child is gradually decreasing. So very interesting. So now the Meghalaya government is very much taking into the traditional things, into action things. So they are documenting, many organizations are involved there for documenting all those cultural practices. And but not in a blank approach. So they have done an assessment. So for the child and women particularly, so how the cultural things not being followed is creating a lot of hazards. So now they are using community groups as a major stakeholder in the whole process. So they have created community groups, and they are involving the community groups in taking whatever decision they are taking for agriculture, let's say for agriculture, for building, for infrastructure, for child development curriculum and everything. So community is a major stakeholder now, and they have started documenting the things. And I can see that in Shillong, you will see particularly the creches they are having. So they're also giving care economy as an important part in the whole urbanization process. That is very nice thing to see in Northeast, particularly in Meghalaya, because both the parents are working since and the child is being neglected. So they have created a lot of space for child, and care economy is the most important part they have taken in the urban policy.
Excellent to know that, Priyadarshini, that how some of this urban thinking can also be shaped and rooted in culture, and also taking into factorization our children, because they will be like the next generation, and there has to be a retention of those kind of traditional wisdom in terms of how they are growing. And interesting parameter, you said that a lot of their development milestones are also now not being met because of not following some of the traditional food patterns, or not accessing play traditionally. So interesting to know how some of these developed phases of urbanization can also trigger ripple effects in terms of how milestones of young children is met. And I'll just try to bring in Bidyutji into the conversation because while a lot of discussion was happening, we tried to hear a lot about the sacred groves. And you had personally mentioned the forest, the water system, the biodiversity, and the ecology of Koraput. So, Bidyutji, what I would like to hear from you is about how do you kind of plan for this landscape? Because it's not just bringing in technical people who have an understanding of planning. How do we do that in the best possible way? One of the avenues that you had put forward was in terms of bringing in people's participation. But please help us define and understand some of this thinking. You're on mute, Bidyutji.
Yes, sorry. So, I mean, there is a disconnect between economy and ecology. Like for giving an example, this coffee. Okay. So, our district administration and the Odisha government is now, because Koraput coffee is famous, coffee and coffee and coffee. Okay. So, we don't need a coffee concrete, I mean, coffee jungle. And coffee is not a biodiversity. So nobody has planned. Suppose Koraput, this is the landscape. We need this much of hectares of coffee only. We know what happened to Kerala, what happened to other states for this rubber plantation and other thing. So now coffee is there. Everybody is talking about coffee and coffee and coffee. But coffee will not protect the biodiversity of Koraput. Okay. I mean, there should be a threshold level. I mean, that kind of a thing somebody planner should think. Then that it can, there are two paper mills. They thought about only the eucalyptus. So there are many eucalyptus. Forest department wanted teak. They planted teak and teak and teak. So hardly there is any kind of a that level of thought that I mean in search of economics, completely ecology is forget. So how giving respect to the ecology of Koraput, biodiversity of Koraput, how we can also have economics and which is benefited for the local people, anybody. So, I mean, that kind of a sustainability, what we talk about now, nobody is thinking like that. I'm giving an example. Suppose the other thing is also happening that kind of a thing. It can this lemongrass, you know. So people started planting lemongrass and lemongrass and lemongrass. Now government is talking about now this vanilla cultivation, the high value, it's economic. But they are putting this polythene sheets. There is a technology they will put on the farm the polythene sheet and they are just dumping that. Now, in terms of getting a high value crop, how you are destroying the local economy? I mean, same earning somebody can earn from the millet also, from paddy also, if importance will give it to that part. Oh. So these are I mean, we have to think 50, 60 years ahead, ecology, how balance can happen, and how there will be a connect between the ecology and the economy. For other example, we are not talking actually for any health issues. Though we have a medical college in our Koraput, people are running to Visakhapatnam or either to Bhubaneswar. Throughout district, not only Koraput, that undivided Koraput, the 4 district people, they are running to the Visakhapatnam. Each day you will find for education. So Priyadarsini is talking about the education. Hardly this any infrastructure is available. People are also running to Visakhapatnam, Bhubaneswar, or any other places. So what about that? Forget about the mother tongue. Mother tongue is the secondary. but there is no tongue, you can say. So I mean, for a Koraput children, Adivasi children, the nearest forest is a park or her park. The waterfall is or her playing ground. Uh, so this kind of if the planners will not think about it, this as I told, sacred grove, they are weaving. I just giving you an example. Just 30 years back, there were 45 cooperative societies. Now only three exist. There are only 380 weavers left. Uh, but I mean, our 2 3 year experience with working, reviving this tribal heritage of weaving and natural dyeing, it's giving a very good. I mean, young girls are earning very good amount. No need to running to the Tirupur to just to earn 6,000 and 7,000. And that too, lot of sexual exploitation happened in this process. Many girls are committing suicide because of that. And so there is need to think of how this whole urbanization can strengthen the local economy. So it is not just somebody will. I mean, the administrator are thinking like cheap laborers are available in Koraput. Let us recruit them, send to the urban places. So in Koraput, AIDS is also an issue in Koraput. Now somebody, other thing is that there are many vices associated with the tourism also. Just 3 days back in Similiguda, so some students are caught, I mean, some young students are caught with this high value drug injections. Uh, so I mean, nobody is I mean, that kind of a plan should happen so that how local people will be benefited by this whole tourism boom. And how, I mean, hardly there are many these so-called skill development schemes there, no? It is not skill development to send a tribal girl to a big hotel, rather to train them as a guide, mountaineering. Those people are coming. How responsible tourism can happen, how local villagers can benefited by this kind of tourism. There is not I mean, many times we have visited Meghalaya or any places. Clean village is also a very good earning source. No, Sacred Grove. I paid 100 rupees to visit a Sacred Grove near Meghalaya, but we have thousands of Sacred Grove near to Koraput. So that can be also earning. So one tribal person, young person, guided us. He explained about the what is this tree, what is the use, what are the gods, this kind of a thing. So it can be, if that proper planning will happen, I think how to strengthen the Koraput local economy.
How do you see the role of local arts, the tradition? Because that is also so much immersed part of actually places like Koraput.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are one hut in Koraput. It's called Ankadeli hut. That is very famous hut. So most of these foreigners used to go there to visit because that is just adjacent to the Banda Hills. So they used to come to that Ankadeli hut. It is on Thursday. So you will find a lot of these foreigners going there. And this tribal women, Banda women especially, they used to come with their own ornaments, beads, little their ringa, from natural dye. And I was once there. One foreigner asked that Banda lady how much the price. So that Banda lady told her, 500, 500. I mean, and that foreigner also gave that 500 to her. Yeah. So this Banda ringa is their cloth with the natural dye and the natural fiber also. It was there. Their beads, their ornaments, everything. So if a Banda woman can speak English, yeah, So they need to earn that, but there is no regulation. If you will go to Koraput, you will not find a single place where you will get, suppose, a interpretation center. What is the Koraput culture? What are the ornaments? What are the cultural thing? What are the dance? So dance means everybody knows that Dhemsa is the only dance, but Dhemsa is not the only dance. Gadwa has a different version. Durwaj have a different version. There are many types of Dhemsas are also there. So there is not a single cultural village you will find. Suppose some people will go and they will understand the whole tribal culture, their values, their wisdom, their agriculture. So there is need to build this kind of a cultural center. It is not a cultural center, not a big building like Nita Ambani Cultural Center. We need a गांव का जो है ना, this गांव, there are gram sabhas, traditional counseling system, traditional justice system they have. Most of the urban places, women and children are the most vulnerable, unsafe. But in a tribal village, any village, especially tribal village I have seen, these two women and the children are most protected. My wife always said that if I am going to a village, she can spend 3-5 days in that village, even to an unknown village. But she feels very unsafe in any kind of if she will go to Delhi, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, or any place. Even to Bhubaneswar is now very unsafe now for children and women. So how we can protect these two groups, their education, their health, their safety? So these are the challenges, and our hope the planners will take. I mean, Koraput should remember as in how fast the urban growth happened. We don't need a fast growth, but whether these people are part of that process or not.
Yes. Beautifully kind of brought in Bidyut with a lot of emotion. And I think that emotion flows naturally when you be a part of a place and you become the place altogether. So I can see it in how you were bringing in the art, the culture. And it's interesting because I'll try to bring in Sanket here and kind of ask him that since he's been part of the tourism sector, let's say, and he's kind of representing that on the panel today. Can tourism be one of the avenues in terms of strengthening some of these local food, craft, farming, without commodifying the culture? Let's say, how much of the shift can we plausibly imagine? Sanket, if you're talking, you're mute.
Yes, hello. Am I audible? Hi.
Yeah.
So I would first like to negate some things regarding this because, like, I might be a little shellfish growing coffee, and I want Koraput to have, that expansion regarding coffee. I understand that there are certain limitations to everything that is happening, but as I was brought up in Koraput, and I get it that there has to be that responsibility in people. But what I want to say is, coffee is not just the only crop that we are growing here. So along with that, coffee is not damaging the ecology, and coffee, if we are growing coffee, we have jackfruit, we have mangoes, we have other spices. But yes, there should not be any limitation to coffee. But Koraput has like a lot of things that are grown here, the vegetables and the millets and everything. The fertility of the soil is up to the excellence, but there has to be manufacturing units regarding ginger, coffee, floriculture, spices that I have noted, because we are not doing a biased I'm not giving a biased opinion on just one crop. And other than that, we have there has to be toilets. I mean, the administration is, developing toilets and lavatories in the villages, but no, people are not at all given that education regarding using the toilets, because they are so acquainted going to an open field and doing all that daily chores. But they have to, first get the education regarding how to use a toilet and what are the benefits of it. And other than that, I would say, if urbanization is, I think, I mean, in my perspective, urbanization is maybe selling things, the capitalism that is coming, because everything, moves around money. And if we are trying to sell things, then it is very important for people who are coming down to Koraput to buy things. That is how we can capitalize the rural, aspect of Koraput. And it has to be capitalized. Maybe today, maybe in someday in future, it is definitely going to be urbanized and capitalized. But the only way we can make it in a very different way, where uh, the people from Koraput has to be, there has to be shops regarding organic vegetables. There had to be, instead of Reliance making a mart here, there has to be a mart where people can go, like the normal crowd. Like, I think myself as an invader who came from, my home was Barampur, and we came here, we settled here. We could be with people, and we tried to, make a cultivation, and we have been employing like 30 to 25 to 30 people around the year, and they are all the female, the audience of the nearby villages. So yes, definitely there has to be education that comes upfront regarding the development of Koraput. And the education doesn't mean we will have to learn cos theta and sin theta, but we have to learn more about the culture and tradition, so that they can at least get something out of what they are doing, instead of migrating to people or migrating to occupation that are not they don't belong to that occupation, kind of thing. So they have to, get to know that what culture, and they can, if they can sell that tradition, if their culture by their own hands, definitely it's a win-win for the place and for the people and for the audience coming down to Koraput. And other than that, I would like to say that there has to be brandization of we need to brandize rural products. Like Bidyut sir said, that it is not just coffee, but there are versatile, maybe 100 or 150 of things that is grown in Koraput. The vegetables had to be they have to be brandized. Like, we know that Koraput is now in getting that crop of strawberry, like in recent years. They are growing up strawberries. There has to be polyhouse to be introduced to the farmers, that can help them grow the agriculture with ease, and they get that. Now that is what that is the only urbanization that these people from Koraput have to go through. And I don't know, I have a lot of points that I have noted. And there is one more thing I had in mind. If you are having a lot of mosquitoes in your place, it is not, you don't have to smoke up the entire place. Instead, we have to invest more on the remedies, like they are given with proper ointment, and maybe nets where they can sleep. So it is not necessarily we have to put chemical into this place, so that we get the productivity out of it. It is the remedies that has to be upfront to discard that urbanization. But again, this is urbanization, putting education is urbanization. And I would say, like, sir, just I'm not at all trying to attack Vidyut sir with my words and all that, but eventually we had 60 coffee farmers, and that has it has gone down to 16. And I personally think that coffee, if not coffee, there has to be something. But it is the land that is giving everything. So it might be coffee, it might be haldi, it might be ginger, it might be millets, it might be vegetables, a lot of vegetables. But some people are also
Sanket, you there? I think,
There's a disruption.
yeah.
sorry,
Um,
sorry, sorry. Am I audible? Sorry.
Yeah.
I got a call, so please pardon me regarding that. But I am not trying to negate or being offensive. But yes, we need like a lot of things, but it has to be marginal. It has to be very motively done for Koraput, and because it is a very sensitive thing happening around Koraput, I just don't believe in concentrating on the negatives that is happening. Negatives are basic things that we have to do it. But as a grower of coffee and very recently getting into hospitality, hospitality is okay, but like sir has said, drugs and all that, it has to be checked. And that's all of all my time. Thank you regarding this.
Yeah.
Preeti,
Sanket, thanks.
Preeti, just a
Yeah.
minute. So my point was the monocropping. You
Huh.
know what happened of this, any kind of monocropping. So
Hmm.
there should be a plan, what happened recently in Kerala because of rubber plantation and also this tea gardens,
Hmm.
Sir,
the
exactly.
big, exactly. So my point was any kind of a monocropping up to one level, not destroying the, I mean, we don't need a coffee forest throughout Koraput.
Hmm.
You got my point? So
Yeah.
once it was a
Definitely.
eucalyptus monocropping.
Yeah.
Exactly. Eucalyptus
So
have actually
yeah,
built the
so
soil. Yes.
so so I mean that kind of a planning needed.
Hmm.
It's not only coffee or I mean many other
Yeah.
things.
No, no, with even Sanket's point and with G, your points, what we're trying to do is that how the future urban development can actually protect some of our forests, the biodiversities, the water systems, while also what I'm hearing from some of the conversations is about urbanization also brings together a lot of service delivery. So we are talking about having access to water, having our toilets in place. So while there is an expectation that urbanization has to bring in some degree of ensuring that there is access and adequacy of some of these basic services into a place, but there is also the curiosity in terms of how some of our unintended pathway, like you're talking about the monocropping patterns, can also have a uh, very difficult influence in terms of our biodiversity. And that is what something that we need to be truly mindful of in the process of places like Koraput. And thank you for bringing in perspective. I'll just seek a bit of question for Anshuman. I think while we've spoken a lot about coffee, what we haven't actually tried to understand is in terms of the agriculture. So while you talk about the agro-based industry in the earlier part of your conversation, how do you think some of these economies can blend into the development process? Because at an urban development site, let's see the ULBs responsible for this phasal procedural development, they don't factor in agriculture to be a dominant kind of economic activity. So we have miniature departmental segregation in which they are all viewed. And so, if the same is done for a place like Koraput, it may not be the rightful way of kind of looking at that.
Yeah, I think see that's been the crux of what I I have personally been trying to put like the entire how much of a role does agri continue to play, and how much of a proper policy orientation is needed, because we have this vision that we want to be developed, right? So this entire urban concept is coming from this Odisha vision. There's a Viksit Odisha for Viksit Bharat documentation where they've put down 2036 goals and 2047 goals, right? And everything else is flowing from there. So they have different targets set for industrialization, they have different targets set for manufacturing, but the underlying principle is we need less agri, right? We want more manufacturing, we want more service based economy, we want more urban centers to come into play, right? Now, the perspective there is the basic human need for food. Now you need agri to support that. Your population growth is going to happen. They still need food. So you need your farmers going to continue to be the backbone of the economy. The idea is not to put, and again, we can't start putting a lot of pressure on land in terms of trying to improve its productivity. Now, this is why a place like Koraput is so beautiful. The traditional practices, the agricultural practices that has been followed since generations, I don't think the entire objective there was uh, it was not about marketing the produce, right? It was essentially about sustainability. These principles were already part of the practices that they were following. They wanted to make sure that they were able to utilize whatever resources that they had to produce something that they could consume enough, and probably save for the future. I mean, that's essentially how the food security aspect of it has happened within Koraput. The larger thread is when we have started putting out these policies for agri, it has always been about pushing the farmer into producing certain hybrid crops, or let's just take the example of rice. Like the idea was, the policy was, we wanted to give certain rice varietals because we wanted the production to go up. Why did we want the production to go up? Not because the farmer should be eating more. It was because he should be producing more than what he consumes. He can take it to the market, sell it so that someone can buy, process it, and then make it available to the urban markets, right? This is where the dichotomy of what we are trying to essentially achieve through urbanization will come into play. When we are trying to build more urban centers, we have to look at agri in terms of two things. One, producing crops for food security. So those are your staple crops. You have to figure out a strategy so that that's available in sufficient quantity so that your population can eat. But the other part of it is, how do you make sure that a rural economy is sufficiently strengthened so that they don't need to set up factories and manufacturing units? Just giving you an example, Eastern Ghats. Now, Eastern Ghats, if you're able to cover the Eastern Ghats with more trees, biodiversity, and make money out of it, you don't need to give it to an Adani or whichever other mineral companies, Vedanta, to dig it up and try to make money out of it. I mean, the whole point is, at some stage, we are also looking at it in terms of like urban. I mean, I'm trying to just like, the more we talk about it, urbanization somehow is coming into touch with things like better income, better earning capability for people. Now, an agro-based economic development model can exist for a place like Koraput, and we need a balance between agricultural production for food security purposes and producing high value commercial crops, because that's what is going to eventually give more money into the farmer, into the grower's hands. Now that is where the vision document, if you'd see, by 2036 apparently Odisha is going to be top five, I think, top five manufacturer of export oriented agricultural products. Those are all part of the policy, but how are we going to get there is not put into place. Now we have a larger vision for the state, but how does a particular district, with all that it has to offer, how does that translate into high earnings? We are trying to bring more earnings. There's a defined target in terms of how much more income we need to put into the hands of the farmers. But how do we get there? We still don't know. All of this is eventually going to put more and more pressure on the land. The balance of like millet production, for instance, we know that the farmers are producing millets. The entire millet mission was not about pushing more and more farmers to produce millets. It was about making sure that that surplus millet that was being produced was sufficiently translating into urban consumption. That is something that was very important for millet mission as well. Now, last couple of years, I've seen this Mokka mission come into play. They're pushing a lot of maize that is being produced. Now, that's the thing. With Bidyut sir also mentioned, the entire idea now is the government policy is push, 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 produce, 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 produce. But the approach should be, okay, how much? What should be the basket? Should rice and paddy have this much percentage? Because this is what the demand is, and this is what a sustainable land use would essentially look like. How much of the land available in Koraput can be diverted towards high valued crops? If so, why? Again, like a very good question that Sir mentioned. And this is something I also fundamentally ask, like, why coffee? Like, there are so many other things that you can do. Just because it has worked doesn't mean coffee. If you do the calculation per acre, possibly coffee is not even giving that much. Like, if we bring it down to the bare basics. So the question is there a way in which that policy is being guided? I'm not entirely sure, because we have these broader goals, we have these lofty ideas that we want to achieve, but how do we get there? Taking into consideration the current realities, I have not seen any of that sort of match. So, in terms of agri, like Koraput, you go, there is agriculture. I mean, more and more lands outside of Bhubaneswar are getting like converted into buildings. People are selling it off. The advantage of Koraput is still there is restriction. You can't buy tribal lands, right? So there will still be a land bank which is theirs. So how do we go about making sure that suddenly a policy doesn't come that tribal can sell to a general? I mean, something of that nature, as simple as that. And making sure that whatever land is available, are we able to make a policy where we are able to identify specific baskets where land use is permitted for certain kind of agri and for, let's say, for food crops and for cash crops. You can start building in. It's similar to what they do with the zoning guidelines, right? What should be residential versus what should be commercial within a city. You can do something similar for agri as well. So that balance is very important, but you can't just produce more millet and expect the farmer to earn more. It's not going to happen unless the farmer is producing, let's say, something ultra processed like a ragi chips. The farmer is only producing in his own factory and selling it to a urban center. You're not going to be able to take the farmer all the way to that segment of the value chain.
No, absolutely, Anshuman. Now, before you kind of go away from the flow of the conversation, I would want to give three practical suggestions in terms of if tomorrow the vision document for Koraput is being drafted. What are the top three things that you would have recommendation in terms of its urban growth and development?
See, again, going back to the fundamentals, I would want to define urbanization in the context of Koraput. Without, you can't have a standard definition of what urbanization is. I don't think that really honestly works. How, like, I would say within Odisha, there are different sort of cities developing in different ways. Koraput needs to have its own approach towards urbanization. So, I mean, like any policy document, you start with defining what it essentially is. So, I would say first start defining what your rural economy based, I mean, rural urban again. When I mean a rural economy, I mean we still can continue the same village model and call it urban. I mean, I don't see a disconnect there. Like, unless we have a very different definition of urbanization where we mean that, okay, we need to have these many people with this infrastructure. I don't see like how we cannot be able to define urbanization in the context of Koraput. Number two is it's a different zone in the sense that, again, land bank and land use is going to be very differently working within Koraput. So let's have a mapping exercise done. Let's try to understand the topography. Let's try to understand what is the percentage that is sensitive, because biodiversity is something that is very important. But in what way the biodiversity has already been affected by years of, let's say, very simply kodu cultivation, like that has affected biodiversity. There have been certain, like, there are also these practices of, like, I mean, urbanization is definitely resulting in less and less animals, let's say wild animals being there, right? So how do we sort of monitor land bank use, which makes sure that we don't compromise on those aspects of the growth? We still want our native trees to be there. We still want the native birds, the native animals to continue in thriving numbers. Culture, of course, culture, heritage, tradition, all of that comes into play. I'm no expert on that, but that has to go hand in hand. So when you identify these broad parameters, effectively, it's a question of how best do we make use of this land? How do we allocate what part of the land is used for what purposes? And overall, if you see the growth right now, I mean, it's the same. Like, over a period of time, what government decided that, okay, let's put up a Nalco plant because that's going to help you develop the socio-economic condition of the region. They try to put a HAL there to develop the socio-economic condition of the place. So that was one way of looking at it. Now they're giving out these leases for extraction of minerals. they're giving it out because there is mineral there. And I mean, the ultimate purpose, I suppose, is socio-economic development. It will lead to probably more employment generation, all of that. But how do we make sure that we also have a similar model for making sure there is socio-economic development, but which is more rooted in an agricultural based ecosystem? That's should be essentially the approach.
Perfect. Glad for putting some of this very nuanced thinking, because the idea is that while we understand there are certain challenges that are existing and continue to exist, how do we kind of blend some of these in the best possible ways? And Biduji, I'll just try to bring you into the conversation. And here I would want to also ask you the similar question that if Koraput for you had to urbanize, what would be the top three ways in which you would see that it should urbanize in the most healthy way?
So let me, I mean, Anshuman, correct Anshuman. It's a biodiversity is not destroyed by the food cultivation. I have statistics. And food cultivation was most sustainable by the tribal people. So it was destroyed because of illegal logging, rich people. They need more furniture, more wood. I mean, these are the reason, not by the um, food cultivation. So people are not responsible, tribal people are not responsible. Rather, they have protected. We are working on this first commons. Recently, we organized a jungle katha in Koraput. We invited the most of the elders from the tribal villages and they narrated their story. Kya tha? What was their story? What is the behind their tribal village deity? Each village you will find a deity, village deity, Nishani, Hundi. There are so many names. So what is the story behind it? So they narrated a beautiful story and also how it was destroyed slowly. And what are the problem challenges they are facing now, and especially women. And this land bank, government has created a land bank, forgetting about the people. Recently, I mean, just 2 years back, we conducted 10 villages mapping of commons. These tribal women, they mapped all the commons. We interestingly found out that these commons are declining like anything. In a village also, 30 to 40% declining of commons. And commons resources are also shrinking. So government is looking, there is a customary law exists in Koraput also with tribal villages. So maybe in a revenue record, that is a different thing, but for villagers, that is a different thing. That is the difference. Now government has created a land bank, taking all the common land from that village to their bank. And that will be distributed to for any kind of so-called development process. Forgetting about these people, their customary rights, their community rights. So these are the things. And if you list out three things: ecology, biodiversity, it should be inclusive to any kind of planning, urban, rural, or anything you think about it, and the people, culture. First is ecology, then the culture. It should be an integral part of it. And the participation, governance process, participation of people in the whole governance process. So these are the, I think, three things, and the safety of women and children. That should be the, I mean, in any kind of urban places, I mean, these two groups are already, I have highlighted. These two groups are highly vulnerable. It's a very unsafe. So how that safety can be there? So I think these three things are very critical.
Yes. No, no, thank you for bringing them. I wanted to hear this from you. And we'll just shift a bit to Priyadarshini. One thing that has not naturally, the initial part of the conversation, there was a lot of conversation about air quality, there was conversation about heat. But towards the interim, we didn't find much Western understanding of with the transition, how much of the climate impacts are being experienced by Koraput? And so, if Priyadarshini, if you can bring in some of these nuances into the conversations.
Yeah. So definitely climate have a lot of impact on child development. So in context of Koraput, I was telling earlier that the childrens are now exposed to a lot of construction sites and a lot of infrastructure making and pollution things. And as I told, the air quality also, since the child at a height of 95 cm during at the age of 3 years is exposed to a lot of poor air pollution, you can say. So definitely the air quality is getting hampered, and so also the child. So a lot of ARI is happening, so acute respiratory infections, and that is one of the major cause of death even. So and because of poor health, the milestone development gets affected. So climate in Koraput now, Bidyut ji can tell the climate is at a worst condition in Koraput now, which was supposed to be very pleasant earlier. So and the child, so earlier I was telling you, urban policies should take child as an entity in all type of planning. It may be a road planning where there should be a safety protocol, safety place for the children. It can be a boundary where it should be we should create a learning place for the children. It can be sanitation, it can be water. Whatever in urban policy they are planning, the child should be taken care as an important entity. So also the climate. So a lot of climate thing is happening in Koraput. So I was telling about northeast. So you have to pay money to be into the sacred forest. You cannot keep your waste bottles, plastics in their tourism area. So they have make it a law. But in Koraput, if you'll see, a lot of places like polluted by the tourists in the name of tourism. So that need to be a best part. We can consider in tourism also, that again the child, so the pollution, the climate need to be addressed in urban policy. And climate change, either it can be heat, it can be cold, or it can be, you can say, the air quality. So everything, by everything, the child is getting affected, which is not taken care by urban policy. So I was telling you, ULB should be equally responsible along with the government departments, the uh, to uh, to have a attention for the children, to ensure them a better space to grow, and to ensure their holistic development from all aspects.
Okay. I don't know. Great, Priyadarshini. And I love it how a lot of your conversation brings out young children, and that is also in urban planning globally, also in India, also child-friendly spaces, child-friendly development has been a bigger, larger set of agenda, and especially in the kind of cohort of young children that we are trying to discuss in the scope of Koraput and alike, it is so critical at this junction. Sanket, if I can't see you on the screen, but Sanket, I also wanted to hear from you on the climate side of it, because you were one of the first few who kind of brought in a lot of.
Yes, ma'am. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Sanket.
Yes, ma'am. I have shortly list some points regarding what should be done, and let me be very precise and short about it. It's first that we need to manage the plastic. Plastic is the major problem, like ma'am said, and I have some solution to it. There has to be recycling plants in every 50 kilometers. That is one major thing that will boost up the health of Koraput and regarding everything. And maybe to get more into it, we can talk about plastic converting into roads. So instead of putting a lot of money, we can recycle that plastic and make good roads. And then the next thing I could sum up to is if we have culture, if we have tradition, we need to brandize it as a what do I say? It has to be GI tagged regarding what we are doing in Koraput. Like I don't want Andhra Pradesh to inaugurate an airport in Bhugupuram and makes a Guinness Book of World Record regarding the highest people in Dhamsa. So it was recently done, like it's just 5 or 6 days back. They have hosted a inauguration of that particular airport, but they told it Dhamsa to be an Andhra culture, but that's not true because Odisha is not getting that recognition. This is happening all the time. Like there is some invasion of space regarding every, like it's an entire circle where the community of Koraput is somehow tagged by a certain state that is nearby to Odisha. And let me be very clear about it. It's Andhra Pradesh that is happening.
Sanket,
So
is there a voice nearby you? Because some of us are not able to.
I'm really sorry, ma'am. I am in a public space, but I'm really sorry for that. If and that is happening, Andhra is trying to take away some lands of Odisha and also the reputation that Odisha, the Koraput culture has. And another thing that the last thing maybe yes, this is the last thing I would like to address. It is forest land. We will have to bring up a lot of forest in Koraput that might be man-made, but it has to look definitely like it's a biodiversity created naturally. So other than that, I don't know if this is enough for Koraput. I might come up with a lot of things definitely lately, but yeah,
Thank
Mhm.
for
you.
now this is all.
Yeah, thank you, Sanket.
Preeti, just a minute, yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
Yes.
yeah. This, what is his name?
I'm
Yeah, just,
Sanket. No sense.
Shankar. Hey, yeah. No, just this state boundary is just a administrative boundary, you know.
Yes, yes,
We are working
definitely.
in Nandapur, most of the bordering to
Kotia
Andhra
is
Pradesh.
Ayud.
Just a minute.
Kotia is one place.
So, just a minute. So,
Yes, sir.
same Paraja, same Kandha, they are living so-called in Andhra Pradesh. This Paraja is a PBTG in Andhra Pradesh, but not in our Odisha part. So, Dhemsa is not a Odisha thing. It's a tribal thing. Wherever Dhemsa, so they bordering to the Andhra Pradesh in Araku, Sileru, Paderu, all these are tribal people, and here, I mean, their marriage, social gathering, everything is assimilating. So Dhemsa is not confined to only Koraput, I mean Odisha. It's a tribal specific dance, and the same Paraja group is a Dhemsa, especially this Paraja, the Odavaz people they used to dance. So they are also part of it. Yeah. So
Sir,
some
but
people are
again,
telling like that it is Odisha, Koraput, oh, le gaya. That is not the, I mean, real issue. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, thank you, all the panelists. I think it has been a very extensive conversations, and there has been a lot of back and forth in terms of trying to see where we are able to kind of stitch together our own understanding of the place and how we want to really move ahead on it. Before I go to the questions that, and one of the few webinars where I saw that a lot of conversation also happened on the bylines, because on the chat window there were so many people while the conversation was happening, they put down their perspective around if at all there is a need of urbanization, should it be defined better, and in terms of better definition of urbanization, do you mean better education, health services, and maybe kind of bettering economic status? So a lot of this kind of understanding came together from some of these questions. But before that, I will just kind of pass it on to Kirti ji, and because he's always been somebody who kind of summarizes it. I don't summarize because I get a little biased by the default of being from Odisha. So it's always good to hear Kirti ji's perspective when he brings in how some of this discussion has taken its course.
So thank you, Preeti ji. First of all, Sanket Bhai, I want to kind of seek your apology. I'll tell you
I'm
why. I'm 84 years old and have not drank 8 cups of coffee in last 84 years. And I'm just asking myself question when I'm listening to you, why I don't drink coffee. So when I come to your coffee-based hospitality estate, please allow me to enter and let me kind of learn how to kind of enjoy coffee. So this is the one part. Now, what is remarkable about this, and I've been thinking about this. As a matter of fact, I've been listening less and thinking more. This has been very unusual webinar. Let me tell you why it's very unusual webinar, because I don't think in 152 webinars I've heard word called agriculture. We are so divided in our understanding of what urbanization is, and there is such silos existing that no one looks at this. And I think just to hear someone saying, and I think that was Anshuman ji saying that I think we've got to put income in the pockets of the farmers. And this coming on a webinar on urbanization and cities, I'm exceedingly very happy. There's another point which I wanted to make, Preeti, for you, and I think this is a thought, if you could take it further. And that comes to me because I'm a great admirer of Prashant Kishore. I've been following him for last few years that he's been essentially walking in Bihar. And when he walked a couple of years ago, some 3,000, 4,000 kilometers and covered some 3,000 villages, one of the things he did was this, that every single village he went to, they set up a village development project, a village development plan for each one. As a matter of fact, I'm very surprised he lost the way he lost. But this is what he did. I'm beginning to suggest to you, Preeti ji, that we should examine possibility whether we could take Koraput as an example, as a case study, and try and develop a urbanization policy which is based not on the conventional urbanization, but the rooted urbanization, the rooted economy, the rooted agriculture, the rooted culture, all that. And because it's one thing to kind of continuously kind of run down the fact that we are so insensitive, we are doing so poorly, we are not. One thing is to really kind of set an example that it could be done. And from what I've heard, of all the four people that I've heard, I realized that there might be a possibility. Even if you're not, like, as a part of, I don't even know whether it could be part of your Odisha Vision Document 47. But urbanization, which is different, urbanization which looks at different kind of economy, urbanization which puts premium on people, on children and women, and all that we heard, because that is not the kind of urbanization we talk about at all. We talk about infrastructure, we talk about governance, we talk about investment, we talk about, I think, all and pollution. So please keep this in mind, Preeti ji. I'll be very happy if this particular webinar converts into something bigger with the participation of people. So that's my second thing. And my third thing is this: I very much wanted to thank this wonderful group of people. And I'm so delighted that I'm sitting here listening to you, because their voices are so different. They're talking a very different language. There's a different kind of sensitivity, and there is a different kind of concern and worries. So thank you very much, Bidyut Saab. Many thanks that you came and spoke. Thank you, Anshuman Bhai. I think I thought you were very passionate and you made your points very beautifully. Sanket Bhai, you're very young and I think you deserve to be, I think, in a hospitality business. But I think I like the things that you were saying. And Priyadarsini ji, I think you made, as a matter of fact, you made the point on children so effectively that even if you kind of rationally examine it, it may not look very correct, but it's so correctly positioned and it's so correct in terms of that we are not looking at our children. We are not looking at the children in the context of our development. We are not looking at our children in the context of our cities and our villages and our housing and our schools and our education. So thank you very much, all of you. And of course, Preeti ji, thank you very much. I never understood that this particular fourth session on the cities of Odisha, on Koraput, will be so different than what you had. You obviously understood that it would be very different. I had not. So thank you very much. And of course, I must thank my colleague Jesna, who makes everything possible, looks so easy, and cherishable. So thank you very much. I have not adequate words to thank you. You've given me lots of thought, and let me see what we can do with it. Because my major concern has been all along that we have 638,000 villages, we have 9,000 cities, and we're looking at 9,000 cities as if 638,000 villages don't exist. That 1,000 million people don't exist. That they have the capacity to contribute to economic growth. They have the capacity to contribute. If you're talking about $30 trillion economy in 1947, why are we not bringing them in? Why are we not talking about them? So I'm very delighted that this particular webinar happened and we focused on Koraput. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And before I close, I'll also want to thank Disha and Bhumaji, who have also pillars behind putting this webinar together. So thank you so much for being there. And of course, to why we chose Koraput, it has been in conversation since 1.5 years now. When we were trying to pick up cities, we picked up Raulkela, we picked up Barampur, Bhubaneswar, Cuttack, Puri, but Koraput. And then you're talking urban, and how does it come together. And I think with today's webinar, it has come out in the most beautiful way, and it has also opened doors to what Kirtiji you proposed in terms of looking at the standardized definition of how our urban systems are being designed, by literally removing a chunk of people out of it and retrofitting them into another nomenclature altogether. From a village nomenclature, we are literally driving them into more like urbanites. So thank you, all of you. Pretty late now, but thank you so much for being
Thank
part of
you.
this.
Thank you,
Thank
Kirti
you.
ji, and thank you
Thank
all
you.
the
Thank you.
participants.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank
sir.
you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you so
Thank you, Bidyut Saab. Thank you, I think, Preeti ji. Thank you, Priyadarshini ji. Thank you, Sanket Bhai. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you.